Tonight, on Be Something Wonderful, how to turn the tide on negative emotion. I am your host, Tom Kieran, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. Over the last few days, I've got several emails asking about negative emotion. And they've said, Tom, I've been experiencing negative emotion, and some of it's from events that come up during the day or during my week in 3D reality. And other times it's just from thoughts that I'm thinking. And then I get really negative and I don't feel like I'm in my wish fulfilled. And then I don't know how to get back into it. And how that affects my state of being in my wish fulfilled. Can you unpack that? Well, guys, we're going to unpack this like we never have before tonight. So here's what I want to say, and this is big. The issue is not that the negative emotion is coming up or that it's being triggered or that there's a negative experience in your life. We'll talk about that, why that happens, and how to handle that. But it's your reaction to the experience. Hear this. It's the relationship that you are having to that negative emotion, or the relationship you're establishing with that person or that event or that circumstance that you're judging as negative. Wow, that's big. So it's not necessarily the negative emotion, it's you establishing a negative relationship with it. Hear this. In that moment, you have the opportunity to consciously establish a positive relationship with what you view or what you judge as a negative experience or a negative circumstance or a negative thought or a negative emotion. Wow, that's powerful. So let's unpack this a little bit more. So since the ancients, right, they've been talking about the idea of creating your own reality, that your power is within. Right? And there's been programs and workshops from Neville Goddard to Tony Robbins, Esther Hicks, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Ernest Holmes was talking about it in 1908 or 1910 or 1916, whatever that was. It's been talked about, right? This idea, and there's been workshops, and we all want to improve. We all want to feel better. We all want to help ourselves. So we seek out these programs, these workshops, these gurus, these courses, YouTube videos and channels, techniques, books, retreats. It's endless. Yet why is it, after all of those books, all those programs, thousands of years of self-help, that we still feel lack and need and want, and we're still unhappy. We still want to be fixed. We want to fix something in our life. We want to do all of this for one reason. What's that reason? Abraham Hicks says this all the time. It's to feel better. And she says, why not feel better anyway? Why not feel better before it? There's a lot of truth into that. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And I want to unpack that a bit more so it doesn't sound like a platitude. So it doesn't come off shallow, because it's deep. Right? Why? What's really self-help all about? It's not about you helping your 3D self. It's about aligning that 3D self with your higher self. That's what true self-help is. It's about aligning with God. It's about aligning with that power and wisdom within. It's about making every decision, every event subject to that higher power. Wow! Imagine the fairy tale you'll be living. Imagine the dream life. It no longer will be a platitude or a high hope or a pipe dream or cloud nine. You'll be living it, right? Feeling good, though, is the baseline. You got to feel good, right? If you're attending these workshops and seeking out these gurus and these videos with your arms folded and saying, make me feel better, fix me, then there's no way to get there. You cannot get there from there, right? Hear that, right? If you're feeling lack or need or want, you're unhappy, you have high hopes, all of that, those retreats, no matter how many retreats you attend, how many workshops, how many programs, how many meditations or gurus you seek, how many Neville Goddard videos you read or books you read, you're not going to get there if you're coming from lack, if you're not already there. Wow, that's big. Because that higher being, it's aligning with your higher being. Your higher being will take you, will carry you to everything you want, right? So as long as you need something in the outside world to change, the people, events, and circumstances, before you can feel good or feel better or feel whole, then you hold yourself hostage. You hold yourself in bondage to the outer conditions and the dead effects of the 3D world. You're bounced around by every emotion that comes up, every trigger that happens, every event that happens in 3D world, right? Wow, that's big. So, and I just want to point out, what's the why behind everything we want? All of our desires. Why do we want them? We want them because we're going to feel better, whether it's a relationship with an SP, it's more money, a better health, better job, we want to be a better person. It's all to feel better. It's all to be in a higher state of being. It's all to feel our natural inheritance, our well-being. It's all to remember who we really are. That's why we do it. That's why we have the desires. There's nothing wrong with the desires. They're awesome. And you'll keep having it. Someone on the channel pointed that out, that it's a never-ending process. Right? Each time you get your desire, you're now at a different vantage point. You have more desires are born of that desire. It's a never-ending, eternal process of becoming, of unfolding, of enjoying, right? You're immortal, you're eternal, right? And this is all based on really the law of correspondence and the law of attraction, right? Like attracts like, as within is without, right? This is what we're talking about. God will not be deceived. The ancients said it, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will reap. So if you don't feel good going into a seminar, the seminar might give you a temporary motivational push or a temporary high feeling, right? A temporary high, but it's not going to get there. You've got to get to source. The source is your inner being, right? If you want to have more, you got to be more, right? We've always talked about it. It's the being. If you want to do more, you got to be more first, right? The world can only give you what you give yourself. God, life, can only give you what you give yourself. Start loving yourself. Start seeing that power within you, right? And then once you start giving that love to yourself, the world will open up and everything will be added on to you. This is powerful, right? Remember what we said. I'll just get a little ripped. Guys, that Vadim Zeland talks about this. All the spiritual teachers talk about this. The mirror, the world is a reality mirror. The world will not smile until you do. Right? It's like you standing in front of your mirror in the bathroom and saying, I want to see a smile there. Show me a smile. If you don't smile, the world can't smile back at you. If you don't smile, the life cannot smile back at you. It's not until you smile, then then the world opens up. The world starts smiling back at you. That's big, right? And the ancients said it, as above, so below. As below, so above. But hear this, and this is a big distinction. This is the law of correspondence, right? As within is without. And the without we know is the 3D physical self. But what are we talking about when we say within? What are they talking about here? They're talking about that inner self, not the higher self. They're talking about the subconscious self, right? Whatever you're feeling, thinking, and believing subconsciously, right? Whatever is there, that's what we call our inner self. That's what you're going to reflect in the outer world. You're under the influence. When you're under the influence of the inner self, that subconscious mind, you're under the influence of the old ideas, the past. And I'm not talking about the subconscious as in that higher consciousness, that super consciousness, which includes God consciousness, which includes subconscious. I'm talking about your personal atmosphere of subconscious, not the God atmosphere of subconscious, right? It's all one mind. But I'm talking about the old ideas, the past beliefs, the dead thoughts, the memories, the feelings. Everything you've ever experienced is there in your personal atmosphere of the subconscious. And that's where you're taking your cues from in the 3D world when you get triggered and when you feel negative emotions. If there's a negative experience that comes up into your life in the 3D world, then your inner self is created within. Something's off in your inner self. Not your higher self, not that God self, not the inner being. That inner being, the reason that you're feeling negative emotion is because that inner being never feels negative emotion. And if you're feeling it, that means that inner being, that's your sign that your inner being is saying something's off. You're not feeling that peace, that love, that joy of which you're made. Something's off guys, something's off in the inside there. You've got to check that, right? You got to check under the hood here, right? So we talk about the conscious mind. Well, that's really dealing with the physical self, right? That's your conscious thought. That's really talking about your separation, right? The conscious mind feels separated from God, separated from others, right? But it does give you the freedom to choose. It gives you the freedom of what to focus on, where to put your attention. And once you start putting that attention on your higher self, then good things start happening. But if you start putting your attention on past thoughts, past ideas, past beliefs, past memories, then you're just you're recycling the past in your present reality, right? It's only when you start pulling from and being aligned with that super consciousness, that inner being, that higher self, that I am awareness, that all knowing, that all present, that all seeing, that all powerful self, now you're under the influence of the higher self. And no longer, now your inner self is under the influence of your higher self, that will be reflected into the 3D world, into your physical self. Hear this. Your inner being, what's your inner self under the influence of? Is it under the influence of the God consciousness, or is it under the influence of that personal subconscious atmosphere that's built up of past thoughts, past beliefs, and past memories, and most of them negative? Right? Hear this. That's what's happening here. Right? So when you have a negative experience in the 3D world, that means for sure that your inner self is negative. Not your higher self, not your God self, not that super consciousness, but that inner self is negative, and that's being reflected in the negative into the 3D world. Right? This means you're not connecting to that higher you. You're not connecting to your inner being. You're not connecting to that God consciousness. You are thinking dead thoughts, dead memories, beliefs, past experience. All that gets triggered in that personal atmosphere of your subconscious. Not the subconscious that's connected to God. You want to get your cues from the superconsciousness, not that old past dead thoughts, right? That's what's happening. So what happens then when you have a positive experience? That means your inner self is feeling connected to your higher self, to your inner being. And that now gets reflected into the 3D world. Hear this, right? That means your inner self is more under the influence of your higher self, under the influence of God, under the influence of who you really are. That peace, that love, that joy, that peace that's beyond understanding, right? Joy, peace, clarity, love, understanding, that all comes from your higher self, right? Your inner being, that higher consciousness, God consciousness, divine you, that's inner truth. It feels good, right? How do you know? Because it feels good. When you feel good, you're under the influence of that higher self. Your inner self is now feeling that connection. If it feels bad, if it feels lousy, if it feels wrong, then you're under the influence of that inner self, of that personal atmosphere. Your inner self's under the influence of those past thoughts, those past memories, those past beliefs, negative things that are getting triggered. That's what we're talking about here. So how do we do it then? So you're saying, well, okay, Tom, I get it. I get it. Negative experiences are coming, those are created within me from either my conscious thoughts, either when I'm consciously thinking a negative thought, or from some past thoughts, dead thoughts that are in my subconscious. So how do I deal with it when they come up? Well, we've always talked about don't resist it. So the first thing is, guys, we've talked about this. When you have a negative experience, when you have negative emotion that's triggered, experience it. Breathe into it, let it pass through, and then establish a relationship to it, a positive relationship. What do we do most of the time? We get more negative. We get a downward spiral. We establish a negative relationship to it. We judge it as bad. We judge it as negative, and then we react negatively. That's what we're doing. So this is the power of opposites. Instead of when you're afraid, then reassure somebody. Right? When someone's rude to you, be nice to them or be polite. Maybe not to them, but somebody else. Right? Go right to the opposite. Feel the opposite. Go right to that subconsciousness, that super consciousness, that God consciousness, that inner being. Feel that. When someone's critical of you, be helpful. Praise somebody. Give compliments. Right? When someone's hateful, be loving. Right? Go to the opposite. Wow, that puts you in immediate alignment with your inner being, immediate alignment with that higher you. That's why affirmations are talked about so much, right? But like I said, the baseline is already being happy, right? You're just getting to the baseline here. by choosing the opposite. And then when you choose the opposite, you're immediately, instantly in that higher state, in that connection or aligned with that inner being. Wow, that's big, right? The world is a mirror. When you smile, the world smiles back at you. That's what we're talking about. That's the law of correspondence. There's the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, the law of vibration, but all of them are basically saying the same thing. As within, so without. Right? That's the law of correspondence. The world is a mirror. When you smile at it, the world smiles back at you. Right? So this puts you under the influence of your higher self. If there's chaos in your outer world, then you can be sure there's chaos in your inner world. Not that inner world that's connected to God, not that higher consciousness, not the highest consciousness, not the God consciousness, not that I am awareness, but in your subconscious, your personal atmosphere, that personal chaos, right? That it's the seat of memory, it's the seat of all your experiences, it's the container of everything that ever happened in your life, sits there. And then so if you're feeling something negative there, if you're consciously attaching yourself to that belief or that thought or that negative experience, if you start identifying yourself with those negative experiences, that they're part of you, with that negative emotion that you're thinking that is you, that's when you start resisting it. That's when you start getting more negative experiences, more negative emotion. Establish a relationship to it. Call it for what it is. Feel it. Let it pass through. But know that you can call up the positive just as easy as you can attach to the negative. That's big, right? When there is negative in your outer world, the communication is broken down between the 3D you and your higher self. Wow, that's big. Between the inner you, right? The 3D you and the inner you and your higher self. The communication is broken down, right? You're now taking cues from that inner subconscious, that negativity, as opposed to the higher you, right? So whenever there's a communication problem, it's between you, not just the 3D you, but that inner you that's part of you. The inner you is reflected there, but that's a breakdown between you and your inner being. That's why you feel negative emotion. It's your inner being saying, I don't feel that way about you. I don't see you like that. Your inner being saying, I'm not having anything to do with that. That's not who you are. I don't believe it. So here's an emotion that you're not going to like, just to let you know that you're disconnected from who you really are. Right? That's big. Now, God's not giving you negative emotions. You're feeling them because you're disconnected from God. That's your GPS. That's your emotional guidance system. Right? That's your EGS, your emotional guidance system. It works like GPS, like in a car, right? It's always going to get you there, right? You're always on the right path. All right, so what's the key? What's the bottom line? The bottom line is find the peace, the joy, the well-being without regard to the people, events, and circumstances of the 3D world. You've got to find that peace. You've got to find that love. You've got to find that joy. You've got to find that wish fulfilled, that state of already being it without regard to the 3D world, without regard to the people, events, and circumstances. But if something does come up that triggers something, if you feel negative, don't run from it. Don't resist it. Let it come up. Don't beat yourself up because you're still feeling it. One of you said, well, it indicates that I'm not my wish fulfilled, and I'm wondering when I'll just be in my wish fulfilled. Guys, every state that Neville talks about, when he talks about states, those states of being include all sorts of emotions, right? Maybe it's the state that you want to be an entrepreneur. That's the state, and a happy entrepreneur. Well, as you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have things that come up. Right? Emotional, there's going to be some negative emotion. That doesn't mean you're not in your state of wish fulfilled, right? It's your reaction to it. It's your relationship to it that establishes whether that's going to be whether you're going to create more negative experiences or whether you're going to turn it around instantly by establishing a positive relationship with a judged negative experience, with a judged negative emotion. Wow, that's big, right? Stop putting outside teachers, gurus, coaches, methods, techniques, processes on a pedestal, right? Giving away your authority to all these processes, right? All these techniques, all these videos, right? You are the authority. Who's the authority? It's the 3D you plus that inner you plus the higher self. It's your consciousness plus your subconsciousness plus that superconsciousness. It's the mind, body, and soul. It's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's the Trinity that's the authority. It's you combined. You are all of that. It's not leaving your 3D self out in the cold. It's not leaving that inner subconscious out in the cold. And for sure, you can never leave your higher self out in the cold. You're the combination of all of that. That's your authority. You don't have to get it from the outside world, right? It's fleeting and temporary when you try to get it from the outside world. The emotion, this is what Vadim Zeland says in Reality Transurfing. I think he makes some great points here. The emotions you experience are the effects, the cause of which is your relationship to what is happening or your relationship to what you're thinking. Hear this. This is what we're talking about, right? The emotions you experience, and you will experience them, right? It's not about getting rid of all negative emotion for all time, although that will happen naturally as you rise in consciousness. It's about letting it pass through, establishing a relationship to it. And each time you do that, you're now stepping into that alignment of who you really are. You're remembering who you really are. When you look at a negative event, a negative situation, negative emotion, and you establish a positive relationship to it, wow, that's real power. That's real power, right? Think of it as a game. This is what Vadim Zeland suggests in Reality Transurfing, because it is the game of life, right? And everybody's a winner, right? You're going to experience all states, all emotions. It's only how you take it. Have a carefree attitude. Keep your desires, keep your goals, your intentions, right? But make them a carefree intention. You already have them. You already are that, right? Here's what he says. Take pleasure in thinking about the desire as if it had already been achieved. This is what Neville Goddard says. This is what Joe Dispenza. This is what all the teachers say. I like the way Vadim says it here. And then he says, 2, let go of your grip or control over the script. Remember, we talked about there's infinite lifelines. And these lifelines are like movie roles, right? And that in each movie role has a set script, right? But so instead of choosing the lifeline that we want to have, the ideal or the lifeline that we want to live, we want to change the 3D world. We want to change the script. That script can't be changed. That script belongs to that film role or to that lifeline. You've got to pick a new lifeline. You've got to pick a new film role as opposed to battling with the script. And when do we battle with the script? When something comes up in our experiences, we judge it as not on our path. We judge it as something that's not part of our wish fulfilled. We judge it as negative. Once you start establishing a relationship as positive to every event, you're now in charge of the game. Now you're having fun. Right? So change your relationship. How do you do that? You run that target slide. You run your imaginal act. You think and live and feel in the ends, right? And go with the flow. He calls this the alternatives flow, right? The God consciousness. Go with that flow. Don't resist it. It's like paddling up a river when you go against that higher self, when you go against the flow of life, right? You choose to perceive seemingly negative changes in the script as positive. That is what their outcome will be. If you choose to perceive seemingly negative changes in the script as positive, that is what their outcome will be. That's big, right? That's what we're talking about. You get to choose your relationship to the world. When you smile, the world smiles back at you. That's what we're talking about. That's the power, guys. That's how to turn the tide on negative emotion. I am your host, Tom Caron. And this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. Hit us up on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful, on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Caron, our website at tomcaron.com or BeSomethingWonderful.com, or write me anytime at info@BeSomethingWonderful.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, with great love, this is Tom. See you soon.